Hi, we're Chelsea and Tony, and today we have a special treat for you. We're here today with world-famous photographer Nigel Barker. He shot for GQ, Lucky, Nicole Miller. He was the guest judge on America's Next Top Model for 17 cycles.
Wow.
I remember watching him there,
Yeah.
learning quite a few things from him. He's hosted The Face on Oxygen, and today he's here to talk to us about Adorama Presents Top Photographer, which is his newest show. How are you today, Nigel?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for joining us. Maybe we're going to get into questions about your career and your techniques, and maybe we'll even ask a gear question or two, because I know people want to know. But maybe first you could tell us a little bit about the Top Photographer contest.
Absolutely. So Top Photographer is an idea that really I sort of had about 8-9 years ago. But of course, then 8-9 years ago, it was a very different landscape in the photography world than it is today.
Yeah.
It was the dawn of digital, really.
Yeah.
People were still kind of, trying to work out whether they wanted to swap from film to digital and all the rest of it. But also the interest level in photography. I mean, I could sense it was gaining speed back then. But of course, today, let's face it, everyone's a photographer to some extent. Okay, obviously, the pros in the business, we're all about the big gear and the lenses and all aspects of it. But it's very nice to think that there are really, when you walk into the street, there's not a single person out there that doesn't have a camera on their phone, that doesn't have some interest in it, doesn't have some concept of it. And for me, that's very exciting. So we created the show Top Photographer, really to challenge photographers from all over the nation. This is a USA-based competition. Hopefully next season we can go wider and go to the whole world, because I know there have been a lot of people saying, "Oh, I wish I could join." But we have, the competition, I guess, the submissions anyway to enter ends August 12th at noon. So the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
You can submit one
days.
photograph. Has to be your best. Really go for something that speaks to you, has a narrative that's going to, the viewer's going to see this picture and they're going to either fantasize or take themselves on a journey or wonder, or those are the sorts of pictures that we're looking for and I'm looking for. And it can be from any genre of photography. We're not looking for just for fashion guys. We're looking for advertising, landscape, wildlife, sport, you name it. If it's an image and it's got some kind of story to tell, I'd love to see it. We'd love to see it, and hopefully have you on the in the competition. And the competition, we're going to have 5 finalists, and we're going to pit them against each other. We're going to have experts from different walks of life within the photography world, whether top sports photographers, advertising guys, fashion guys, and also people from outside not just photographers, but art directors, creative directors, magazine editors, so on and so forth. Set challenges. And really, see, for example, with a sports challenge, you may not be a sports photographer. What's your take on that? And how can you, as a photographer, perhaps challenge us to see this particular event differently? And we're going to have people there from top magazines. I don't want to give away too many names just yet, because some of this stuff is secret. But it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of big guys. And you're going to learn from them as well as myself, as well as from the editors. It's great to think you're going to learn from great photographers, but also find out what the client wants, because that's really ultimately, how it all boils down. We're commercial photographers. We do this for a living, and we have someone we have to answer to that, and if we don't, you don't get the booking again. So it's great to have sort of real life jobs. And ultimately the winner will receive a $50,000 prize package from Adorama in Canon, which is wonderful. And for me, this is the real prize for me. On top of all of that, you're going to get a solo exhibition of your work in New York City, hosted by me. And I tell you why that for me is really the prize, the biggest prize, because my personal career was launched from an exhibit of my work in New York in the late 90s. Wow. And it was a way of opening it up to all kinds of clients to come and see your work up close and personal. And it was from that moment for me that I got several big breaks. And when I was talking to Adorama and to Canon about the prize package, I said this would be really a wonderful thing to do, because I don't want this to be just a competition where you win and you go on your way. I want to see what we can do to help really launch people's careers and take them in the right direction. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I can't believe there are prizes after having that amazing opportunity in itself, that surprise. And a lot of our viewers will be interested in that because they're always asking us, how do I launch my career? How do I take it to the next level? How do the pros get there? And it will be great for them to be able to see you walk people through the steps of learning and dealing with clients and dealing with editors. So,
and can I just say that among the prizes is a Canon 1DX Mark II, the 70-200, the 24-70 and the f2.8, and the 16-35, the Canon Holy Trinity, like the best set of gear that you can possibly get. But Nigel's right. The gear isn't going to make as much of a difference as actually getting your name out there and all the exposure. I think it's just a ridiculous opportunity for people. You can go to adorama.com. I also set up a shortcut here, sdp.io/top. That'll take you to the contest entry page. A lot of good submissions there already. I think you're getting some good pictures in.
We've got lots, many great submissions. But don't get me wrong, as far as the gear is concerned, you can obviously take a pretty picture on a phone. There's no doubt about that. But you're not going to be able to take a professional picture that you can sell or you can use or print to any scale or replicate in any condition or put your name on unless you have the gear, right? So that is a thing. I mean, obviously
they go
it's
hand
wonderful.
in hand, right?
Yes.
But you also can't just get the gear and not have the proper experience.
No, so you need the experience, you need the gear, and also you need the opportunity. And I think that is where what we're doing is we're wrapping it together and saying, here's a bunch of experience and technical know-how that you'll learn from the show. Here's the gear that you're going to get, that you're going to need, and it's a $50,000. So you imagine, if you're going to go out there as a young man, a young photographer, a young woman, wanting to set up, $50,000 is a huge expense. It's you may be paying that off for several years. We're taking that away and saying, here, boom, you're going to go. You've got the best of the best right now, like you said, the holy trinity of lenses and Canon gear. But then on top of that, here's an opportunity to showcase your work, beautifully printed, have press there, and I'm going to invite lots of people who I know in the business to come and look and be a part of it and have a big, party. Hey, maybe perhaps you guys, Tony and Chelsea, you'll show up too. It'd be wonderful.
Yeah,
I would love that. I'm already there.
Wonderful.
Speaking of that, we had some questions for you. Do you mind taking them now?
Please, fire away.
So while we're on this topic, we've done some shows about this, and people ask us all of the time, which traits do you think make a great photographer? We've talked about having the gear, we've talked about having the experience, but you've met so many great photographers, and I'd like to know your take on that.
I mean, personally, for me, a great photographer is someone with an opinion, someone who is unafraid, someone who's unabashed, someone who's willing to take a risk and do what it takes to get the image. And I think that no matter what kind of photography you're talking about, whether it's a portrait photographer, fashion photographer, landscape photographer, food photographer, I mean, the list goes on and on. The people at the top of their trade, the people who are in most demand, you go for them for a style, a look, a feel. They're not just shooting to order. They're not just doing what they're asked. They're not just given a brief and you're fulfilling whatever the creative director is asked. The creative director is coming to you because you have a style and because they know they're going to get a picture that is shot by you and that will have a sort of your signature on it. Regardless of whether your signature is on it or not, just the style alone will let people know that you took that picture. And that is a hard thing to do, And I think that the number one question I get asked by young photographers are, can you look at my photos? Are they good? What do you think? And of course, that's totally valid, and I get it. And you want feedback from someone who's in the workplace doing shooting and that you respect. But ultimately, there has to come a time when you don't care what I think. You have to shoot what you shoot because you love it, regardless of what anybody else thinks. And at that moment, that is the moment when you are truly sort of, I guess, become a photographer in my eyes that is, up there with, people who are image makers. I mean, I hate to compare to some big artists, but if you were to change it from photography to, say, painting, Van Gogh, I don't think ever turned around and said to someone, should I put another stroke of paint in the corner?
Is this good?
He was like, right? And it's finished, even if it's missing an ear, it's fine. Ultimately, that's, and I think as a photographer, you need to be the same way. You need to have that much faith in what you do. Obviously, there are times, when you're shooting for a client that they want a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but you still have to make it yours. And that, for me, is a top photographer.
Have you ever had to walk away from a gig because the client wanted something that was just drastically different from your own style?
I mean, I have, and yes is the answer to this, a short answer to that. It doesn't happen often. I mean, you try and make sure that, that ultimately they've come to you in the first place. It's because they know who you are, they like what you do. And so there's normally some synergy there already. Occasionally, once a job is sort of established, there can be differences in opinion, because it's not really ever as, in some of the jobs that I do, not as simple as just one or two people. There can be a lot of cooks in the kitchen and a lot of different ad agencies, clients, companies, businesses, people involved, and of course, hair and makeup and models, and all these different things can change and shift. And so yes, sometimes you're like, I'm not sure that this is really what we signed up for. But that being said, it also it's not always that complicated, and you just really, as long as you believe in what you do, no matter what you're thrown, no matter what job description you're given, you still apply the same passion and effort. So I think that, and that's the exciting thing too. I mean, it's not it's a job as well as an art form.
Absolutely. Maybe I can get an anecdote out of you. You're often trying to get the best background and setting in fashion photography because you want the picture to be eye-catching. What's the craziest or most dangerous situation you and a model have ever had to be in?
Well, obviously, I've been in a few crazy and dangerous situations, and I think that's partly because of television more than anything else.
Yeah.
We like to push the boundaries just to create a bit of a buzz. But that being said, there have also been some fun times as well. I mean, a couple of things. I've taken photos of models standing on top of Sydney Harbour Bridge with the cars rushing below us, every bit of gear strapped and tied to my wrist and with bands in case we drop anything. Absolutely terrifying. With you're hundreds, if not thousands of feet, it seems, up in the air, with the cars going beneath you. But I've also, I think probably the most scary one of all for me, at least the most life-threatening one for me, was a shoot that I did on America's Next Top Model in Barcelona with a bull in a bull ring. And that particular shot, Cara D was one of them. I see the pictures you're showing up right now. This is actually, there you go, you're on it now. These pictures were the most dangerous. And I almost actually, and I hate to say it, lost my life, but I almost lost a kidney. I was there trying to photograph that bull, and those photographs that you're seeing, although the bull was in the ring at the time of the girl, they are composite pictures. So the bull was not about to take that girl's legs out as it looks in that picture. I photographed the bull separately and then put him in the picture. So how we went to get that picture of the bull, I was in the ring alone with the bull, with 3 matadors. And we had an ambulance outside the ring, and we had my producers. And whilst the models were in hair and makeup, I was getting these close-up shots of the bull charging the camera down. I wasn't, though, getting the exact picture that I wanted. See this one here where it's charging down on me? That one? I was there, focused on the bull, but the matadors would say, okay, Nigel, get up. We'd jump up, we'd run, my assistant and I and the matadors would go behind this wooden screen that was a protective wooden screen, and you hear the bull just smash into it, all 2,000. And you go, oh my God, I just made it in time. But I was getting this little courage because I realized I wasn't getting killed. And so I had my camera aimed at this long lens on the camera. And I was thinking each time I could stay a couple of seconds longer, a half second longer. And finally I thought, okay, I really want to get this bull looking like it's really right down on my head. And as it was charging the camera, the matador said, Mr. Barker, now get up. And I just thought, no, I'm going to stay here a little bit longer. Finally, my photo assistant grabbed my camera and ran off with it. And I'm like, wait a second, he ran off with my camera. He doesn't save me, he saves the camera. So gear guys out there, he knows, now you know what he considered to be the most important thing, not his phone.
Save the camera.
It's clear the gear is more important than the photographer. It's proved.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I jump up, I turn around, and the bull just scrapes me, slices my shirt, and cuts my back. I kept shirt to say I had blood running down my back, but it missed me. Thank goodness I managed to pivot just in time, and it smashed into the wooden thing. And I'm basically in the bull ring alone with this bull that just dazed itself. And I thought, oh no, the matadors, because they got the bull, they ushered the bull away. They looked at me, and I thought, okay, I've blown it. The matadors are now going to not allow me to be in the bull ring anymore. But actually, they stood around me, these 3 men. And literally, only a matador could, with their, chest puffed out, their little hats on, and their tight little gear, standing there. They smacked their chests and went, "Mr. Barker, you have the heart of a bull." And they all embraced me. I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So it was a very funny moment where I almost lost my life. I thought I was going to get kicked out and lose everyone's respect. But in fact, I didn't die. I got a great story, and the matadors all thought I was, basically could be a matador myself.
I know, you're an honorary.
Yeah, you're awesome.
Honorary matador, Nigel Barker.
Okay, you had a better answer to that question than I expected.
That's incredible. So did you at least get a great picture out of staying there?
We got great shots. There's the pictures are you see the pictures.
Yeah, I think it's
this
one that he's talking about where he's
that one there. And there was another couple as well, which we got with the bull charging down. We got some great moments. And heck, you do what you have to do to get the shot, right?
Yeah.
Well, so that particular image was a composite. In general, how much do you rely on post-processing versus getting everything in camera? I
rarely do composite pictures. So almost every other shot we have ever done, like this shots you're looking at here, even that one with the ram, these are all real shots. These aren't composite shots at all. And I actually, when you start in film, you learn to take the picture in camera because that's all you really have. Right. In fact, some of those shots, like the ones with the bull charging the girls down, there's no real way to do that unless you are just lucky to get the shot. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, you definitely have to worry about safety first. Okay, good. So you try to get as much as possible in camera. When you do post-processing, what's your workflow? Do you do it yourself or do you outsource it?
I have a team of people who work with me. Same people have worked with me for years. I mean, one of the great things, certainly in my company, is that I've had people who have worked for me now for 10 years, 15 years. And my first assistant right now has worked for me for 6 years. And, I don't change around too much. I mean, the people who do my retouching have printed for me prior to that. And really, if you're able to keep it with the same people, same time, that's really how we all started in photography in the first place. You wouldn't change printers very much. And your printer got to know the way you process your film, knew how you pushed it and pulled it, knew how you like to burn and dodge in certain areas. And it's really no different now. You shoot in the same manner, and they know that there's certain things that you like and certain feels that you have and certain colors that you use for your signature.
Great. Well, I know you started out as a model, and then you got into photography. How did your being a model change you as a photographer? Did it teach you to empathize more with the model? How does it change how you relate to models?
I mean, funnily enough, I was a photographer at school, right? So at high school, I used to take pictures, and I used to take pictures of the sporting events and theatrical events and print and sell them to kids at school and stuff like that too. And then you're right, I became a model, and my mother entered me into a competition in the late 80s. And I didn't win, but I got a contract and I got into it. And it was really at that moment that I got to see professional fashion guys at work. And it gave me the idea that, hey, perhaps I could do this. Back when I was a kid, there was no degree in photography. That wasn't an option. There was no, you couldn't go to college and study like you can now. Everyone who works for me now has a degree in photography. I'm the least qualified person on my team. But the reality, you would go and intern, you would go and assist. You would, that's how it worked back then, more than anything. I guess by modeling and working with all these great photographers, and I did it for 7 years, and I did get to work with some of the best, with Avedon and Bruce Weber and Irving Penn, and there are various people who photographed me that I had the opportunity to see how they work, their workflow. When you get to see them, it's not that you're assisting them, but I was always very keen on watching where the lights were, watching their workflow, seeing how they talked to the client, seeing how they talked to the subject. All these things, I was constantly looking at, and sometimes, this is something which I probably shouldn't have been doing, but I did, and I'll let you know what I did exactly. I would sometimes get my camera out, a little small camera I had, point and shoot, and photograph the lighting setup from my position as the model, right? And then I would see my tear sheet come out, or my Polaroid that I was given, and I could look at the way I was lit, what was happening in the picture, and also either mentally take a photograph or actually physically take a picture of the light setup. So I then knew what kind of lighting was needed to actually create the light that I was then in. So I could see, obviously I couldn't tell the retouching, I couldn't tell those things, but I had a great idea. So I was self-taught. And then I also, got myself a great camera. My first was a Canon EOS 1N, and film camera. And, my favorite lens was one of the 85 millimeter prime lenses, one of the, beautiful ones that they have. And that was my portrait, camera. And I would take these pictures of my girlfriend and of her sister and her friends, who were all models, who would come back, and I would say, please don't wash your hair. Don't take your makeup off. When you come back from the job, take a few pictures of you with all this professional hair and makeup. And I built a portfolio over about 2 years of these sort of great headshots and portraits and what have you. And it was a lot of fun, but it was my way into becoming a professional.
That's brilliant. I love that you're scrappy.
Yeah.
You do what you can, you just do what you can. It's the reality is never as glamorous as it sounds when you hear someone just becomes a photographer. The reality is it took me several years. You do what you have to do, but by doing that, you pay your dues, you understand how the cameras work. It become, the cameras then all of a sudden become like second nature to you. I hold cameras. People see cameras in my hand sometimes and they get worried because they feel like I'm going to drop it but it's not. I'm so in tune with it. It's like, chopsticks. There's nothing I can't pick up or do with it if I understand it very quickly and very easily. And I think that's an important part of it too. You've got to know your camera so that it doesn't become, it helps you. It doesn't become a sort of a hindrance.
Those are good tips, and I like the tips of if you want to be a fashion photographer, first be a really handsome male model, and then get as your girlfriend/wife a professional model who has a sister who is a professional model. That's
I think that's a good example of how there are many ways to come up.
Yeah, and you do what you can with what you have, and any little resource you have, you make absolutely the most of it.
Absolutely.
If you had one other tip for people before we have to let you go, people who specifically want to get into fashion photography, what would that tip be?
I mean, I think, as I mentioned, the sort of ability to edit yourself. And I think if you look at some of the great photographers out there, if it's a Stephen Meisel or a Stephen Klein, certainly in fashion these days, and Mario Sorrenti, these are people who take risks, who, really, someone like a Meisel, who was a fashion stylist and creative director initially, he knew what he liked to look at. He knew where he wanted the light to be. And he basically decided to pick up the camera himself and say, heck, I'm going to do this. I know what I want. Knowing what you want is key. If you have to constantly be advised or someone to give you direction, then, at that point, it's hard to make it as a serious photographer. You are someone who's going to be hired to be under someone else's guidance. And I say this to my first assistants all the time when they work. I'm like, okay, what is it you want to achieve in this picture? What is the end goal? What is the look and the style that you want to do? Now you've got to do that. And if I look at it and I'm like, I don't like it, I'm not sure about this, that shouldn't bother you, as long as you're happy. And if you're happy, being polarizing is important as a photographer. Being loved or hated. The one thing you can never afford to be is ignored or be average. Okay, so go one way or the other, make an impression, and you'll have a career.
I like that answer because we are definitely nothing short of polarizing in this community. Chelsea, we have to let Nigel go. Do you have any final questions?
He's been so great. Well, do you have any from our viewers?
Not at the moment, but what else do you have?
We get a lot of questions. Oh, here's a good one, I think. You said that you worked with Avedon, which I'm incredibly jealous. I thought that some of your pictures looked Avedon-esque. What traits in other photographers do you admire? Are there other photographers that really inspire you or have traits that you wish you had?
And one of the things that Avedon, as you mentioned, who I adore, who I think is one of the most extraordinary portrait photographers ever. One of the most amazing things that I loved about him is that he didn't just capture iconic pictures, but he made them happen. He provoked situations and created scenarios that were very conducive to getting the kinds of shots that he wanted. One of the stories of him that I love, and I'll just tell it very quickly, is when he got to photograph the English royal family, and he was late for the photo shoot, and they got very upset by it, the Duchess and Duke of York, and they were really quite irritated. He finally showed up as they were about to leave, and he comes running in, apologizing for being late. They're furious at this point. And he said, well, listen, I'm so sorry I'm late because on my way here, their dog ran in front of my car and I hit it, and I think I killed this corgi, which, the Duchess burst into tears because it just so happened that she bred corgis. So she was very upset. The Duke turns around and goes, my dear, this is terrible. I'm so sorry. This man is horrible. We're leaving. And at which point he just fired away the picture, took this picture of the English royal family, the Duke and Duchess, with her crying and him consoling her. And it became one of the most iconic photographs of the English royal family ever, because they'd never been seen to show real emotion in a picture. And it, for the first time, made the English public realize that they were human. They wouldn't be happy if he was late, because no one holds the royal family up. He also knew that she bred corgis, and he made the whole story up. He was sitting in the wings, waiting for them to get to a certain point of irritation, run in, say something that would make him upset, and then take the picture. The whole thing was a setup. Now, I'm not, and that's a very, over the top of getting a picture done, but sometimes you do what you have to do to get the shot. And, people used to laugh at us on Top Model for taking things to extremes, like having bullfights and spiders and hanging people from the air. But believe me, the best have done it. And sometimes you do what you have to do to make an iconic image. So
irritate the royal family. Come on, people. If you need to...
Fantastic story. It gave me chills.
It's incredible. That gave me chills.
Slightly sociopathic, perhaps, but he got the job done.
He got the job done.
He made a historic photo.
I admire that.
Whatever you have to do. Nigel, I know we have to let you go. Let's talk about Top Photographer again. It's going to be an entertaining and educational contest. Right. You have 5 contestants. You can submit right now. We made a shortcut at sdp.io/top that will take you to the Adorama website where you can submit a photo. I know Nigel's looking for a photo that tells a fantastic story and really grabs attention. So go there and get a chance to have Nigel judge you, advise you, guide you. And if you are the top photographer, you'll get a $50,000 prize package from Adorama and Canon, including some awesome Canon gear. Any final words before we head out, Nigel?
May the best shot win.
I love it. Thanks so much for joining us, and hopefully we see you again when the show is airing.
I look forward to it. All the best.
Thank you so much,
Thanks, Nigel.
Bye.